Welcome back, everybody. Unranked Podcast here for another episode. Got Grant here. Actually, only going to be me this week. Elijah's actually, if not mistaken, en route to Las Vegas at the moment. So all of our listeners, send him some good luck. Hopefully he gets on the roulette table, wins them a little bit of money. But hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving week, Thanksgiving holiday, Thanksgiving weekend as well. Hope everybody's able to eat some good food, and I hope that everybody was able to tune into that game Saturday. Obviously, I'm talking about the Michigan-Ohio State game. It's probably one of the best performances I've ever seen a Michigan team put on. We're definitely going to dive into that on this episode. Also going to talk about the top four. Obviously, a new one released on Tuesday, so really just want to kind of see what that's going to look like, especially with this upcoming weekend. There's a lot of different scenarios to where you could have potentially two SEC teams in there. Cincinnati might crack the top four, if they handle business. I think they'll definitely need some help. Big 12 thought they might have been out of it this year, but a couple of teams able to find their way into that top eight. It looks like, or excuse me, top nine. Looks like, so they might have an outside shot at it. And Michigan, they control their own destiny. Georgia's pretty much a lock. Notre Dame's hanging around a little bit. The new coachless Notre Dame, I should also add. We'll also be talking about USC and LSU. Obviously, they made some pretty big time coaching hires within the past few days. Just dig in on some of those contracts they signed, some of those coaches signed, and how that just kind of looks, for college football as a whole. Especially for a team or for a school, I should say, like USC. They've kind of been down the last few years. I personally feel like that's a top three coaching job in all of college football. So I think that's going to be kind of interesting to see what they're able to do. And obviously LSU, they have the players. I think their issue has kind of always been the coaching and the talent development. So be able to see what Brian Kelly can do with them. But we're definitely going to have to dig in here on the Michigan-Ohio State game, man. I mean, that was a huge victory. I'm not going to sit here and say that, I thought that, we had it and it felt like, this year was our year. But, all this year, Michigan, you guys have been listening to tuning in, the last few episodes we've had. For me, it's always been like, obviously it's great if we beat Wisconsin. We beat the Purdue's and the Iowas and Minnesotas and, those schools. But I wanted, what always means the most to me when it comes to Michigan is beating Michigan State and Ohio State. Obviously, we couldn't get Michigan State this year. It is what it is, but the fact that we were able to, beat down on Ohio State the way we did, I mean, that was a performance that was huge. So hopefully we're able to carry the momentum into this weekend. Got another big time matchup. Harbaugh should definitely have them prepared, but we'll just go ahead and see. So some of the key takeaways I had from the Ohio State-Michigan game, man, was really just they were able to control time of possession, control the line of scrimmage, and I always say that to me. Anybody that knows me and my close friends, they know me. They probably hear me say 1,000 times. I always feel like the most important thing to do is just run the football. I know college football and even the NFL is kind of trying to turn into this like pass happy leagues where, run the football is more secondary at a point. It always kind of just like bugs me. You see teams ultimately just end up losing a game because they didn't think they needed to establish the run, or, they didn't run the ball enough, or, they weren't running it consistently. Got teams nowadays are passing on first, second, and third down, which I think is just kind of crazy sometimes, but that's all Michigan did this past Saturday. They had our bell cow, Hassan Haskins, 5 touchdowns. I believe he just scored again. So on that Ohio State defense, just pure domination, running the football. Ohio State's defense, they just didn't know what to do. Our O-line, we got to give them a lot of credit, obviously. They just dominated, pushed them guys off the ball every time. Pretty sure Haskins averaged like 5 or 6 yards a carry too, which is nuts. Corum came in there on one leg and somehow found a way to run for 70 yards. Yeah, it's just a great team win overall. And, just kind of shifting gears over to the defense now. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think if Aiden Hutchinson, if he's able to have as big a game this weekend as he did last weekend, I think he might need some help here and there. If Bama falls or, some of those other Heisman hopefuls, don't have, or I feel like if Hutchinson has as big a game as he did last weekend and Bryce Young loses this weekend to Georgia, I think you have to, this might be the first year a defensive player gets the Heisman. You already broke the sack record at Michigan. I mean, that was a record that was hanging up there for a minute. I mean, I think it's back to like 06, 07 when Lamar Woodley, then that was the one who actually had the record previously. So, yeah, I mean, just very impressive performance. I mean, all week we were just kind of thinking about how what it would come down to would be really Ohio State's, their passing attack with those 3 first-rounders at wide receiver against, our 2 first-rounders at defensive end and linebacker coming off that edge. So ended up working for us in our favor. And I know, you got some people saying like we shouldn't be or you got some people saying that just because that's our first win in 10 years and this, that, and the third. But hey, I'm gonna have my moment. I'm gonna definitely enjoy this. I mean, the last time they beat Ohio State, I was 18 years old. So it's been quite a while since that's happened. And yeah, I mean, it's overall great performance. I've probably been one of the ones giving Harbaugh a lot of slack and just, not giving him, just kind of being really critical of him, because I do feel like there's times some of these games that he's dropped in the past few years shouldn't have been losses. And, a lot of the times the way teams played was kind of, I put him on his shoulders. I feel like he didn't prepare them, but I mean, he had, that him and that coach staff had the perfect game plan. And this Harbaugh, I mean, this year, it feels like this is old Harbaugh, the Harbaugh that Michigan first hired. He's got that swagger back. He's definitely, talking his shit post game. He's doing a lot, just a lot of things he was doing when he first got there. He's doing them again now. So that bodes well for the team as a whole. And like I said, we got to handle business this weekend. And they're a pretty good team. They forced a lot of turnovers. I think they had a couple games this year. They forced like 5 plus turnovers, which is insane. That defense is solid. I think they kind of have a QB by committee thing going on. I'll be honest, I didn't do a ton of research on them. Haven't really watched a ton of Iowa this year. But, they always kind of run the ball well. They've definitely ruined a couple playoff opportunities, or one playoff opportunity in particular for us in the past few years. We went down there. The year we were like second in the country at the time, and a couple calls didn't go our way and ended up beating us. We were 11-0, 10-0 if I'm not mistaken at the time. And yeah, sometimes it happens though. So, but yeah, what we're gonna go ahead and do now is kind of shift gears. I wanted to talk about what these rankings are looking like, college football playoff rankings. We got quite a few different scenarios that could come to fruition after this Saturday. So obviously, Georgia number 1, Michigan number 2, Bama 3, Cincinnati 4, Oklahoma State 5, Notre Dame 6, Ohio 7, Ole Miss 8, 9 is Baylor, and 10 is Oregon. So right now, Cincinnati is sitting in there in the top 4. Man, I still feel like I think they deserve it. I mean, they got that Notre Dame win. I mean, that's a great win. They got a win against number 6 team in the country at Notre Dame. They beat them by a pretty decent amount of points as well. So I think that's still impressive. Good to see them in there. They're definitely going to need, some help in order to, I think, stay in that spot, because, I mean, there's going to be a lot going on. I mean, if Bama beats Georgia, I think that might kick Bama to like 2, maybe kick Georgia to 2, maybe put Bama to 1. Michigan might slip to 3. It's a lot of different scenarios. You got the Big 12, where it's Oklahoma State and Baylor. Oklahoma State's at 5, Baylor's at 9. I mean, Oklahoma State wins. I mean, that's a win against a top 10 team. They could easily jump Cincinnati. I feel like even have Notre Dame, they're kind of sitting at home on the couch, and sometimes that's the best place to be this late in the season because you don't have an opportunity to mess up and lose or, kind of put yourself out of contention. So a lot going on. Everybody's kind of how it kind of looks and shakes out. I mean, everybody really kind of
controls their own destiny to a certain extent. I mean, if Michigan wins, it's a lock. I think they'll be locked in at number 2 or number 3. So we'll have to just kind of see how things unfold. But definitely going to be some exciting football this weekend that I'm definitely looking forward to. This is the first time in a while that Michigan's been playing some meaningful football this late in the season. So it's just a good thing to see. And we'll have to just kind of see how things turn out when it comes down to Saturday. But what I would like for Georgia to get Bama, so we don't have to see Bama. I think that if that happens, and if Oklahoma State wins, I think it'd be a Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State playoff. I think those top 4 teams. I think that'd be a nice top 4. So we're gonna see though, man. I mean, it's gonna be real tough. I mean, I think when you're looking down at it, when it comes down to it, Cincinnati might be on the outside looking in. That's very, very possible for that to happen. The committee is not big on the Group 5 schools. It's all really just been like style points for them the whole season. They got to blow everybody out by 40. And I mean, their matchup, it's not a cakewalk either. They got to play Houston. I mean, that's a team that puts up a lot of numbers, puts up a lot of points, puts up a lot of yards. It's somebody that they definitely should not take serious. And if you ask me, I feel like they got to beat them by at least 14-21 to kind of solidify themselves as a team that belongs in that top 4. So we'll see though. We'll see. Definitely, like I said, definitely going to be a lot of exciting football this weekend, and something I'm definitely looking forward to tuning in with. Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and shift gears here, man. Talk about some of these new hires around college football. It's always the time of year where that starts to happen. It's always a weird year too, because one thing I just learned and found out was like recruiting. I believe the recruiting session it ends around December 15th. I'm not exactly what it is. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't follow the recruiting side of the game a whole lot. I'm trying to kind of get a little bit better at it, but it's just a lot sometimes. But I know December 15th, that is a date that, a lot of these coaches are having to, whether they got to play in a conference championship game or not, they still got to find a way to go recruit and kind of lock up, some of those potential guys that are going to be coming in, to their program. And we literally just watched Lincoln Riley lose on a Saturday night. And from what I saw him say earlier this week in an interview, he lost that game, got word that USC wanted to have a conversation with him, had a couple hours of sleep, got up and talked to USC, talked with his family about it. And I already know after that contract, I mean, it was pretty much a no-brainer. So I just want to plug the contract just because it is pretty ridiculous. The amount of money he signed for, just as long, along with all the incentives and everything. So this is Lincoln and Riley's contract for USC. And yeah, I mean, I see why it took him less than 2 days to decide that he was going to make that move. $110 million, USC buying both of his homes in Norman for $500,000 over asking price. So that's basically a $100 million bonus. Buying him a $6 million home in LA, and he has an unlimited use for a private jet, 24/7 access for his family. So people are gonna be mad at him. Obviously the Oklahoma faithful, I know they're, that
probably that program's probably in flames right now. They just don't know what to do with themselves. They got kids that committed there that are decommitting and probably going to commit to Oklahoma. But I don't think anybody in this world will turn this type of offer down. And I mean, like I said earlier, I feel like USC, I feel like that's probably like a top 3, top 5 coaching job in all of college football. I mean, I really feel like he has an opportunity to kind of control the West Coast. I mean, you got Oregon. I mean, they're solid, but they always kind of find a way to just. I mean, they had that huge win against Ohio, at Ohio. They were rolling, ended up losing like Stanford. Lost, got beat down on live, in primetime television, playing Utah. So they're obviously going to be there. They're probably the best team in the conference right now. And then you got like Utah. Utah's doing okay. Chip Kelly has UCLA kind of getting to be a little bit more competitive. But I think Lincoln Riley could have that team competing for a national championship in a couple years for sure. I mean, it's in LA. I mean, California is probably one of the greatest states for football. You got a lot of kids right now around the country that are from California that are starting. I'm pretty sure Bryce Young is from California, plays for Bama. DJ, hopefully I say his name right, like it's Ualele. He's playing for Clemson right now. He's from California. I mean, Lincoln Riley already got a 5-star California kid supposed to go to Oklahoma. And less than a day after he signed, that kid already decommitted from Oklahoma and went to USC. And everybody knows Lincoln Riley. I mean, he's got that college QB, the college QB whisperer. Having Baker and Kyler Murray being number 1 overall picks. I think he basically saved Jalen Hurts' career in a sense to where Jalen Hurts probably wasn't even going to be looking to be drafted as high as he was after leaving Bama. But Lincoln Riley was able to help him out with some mechanics, decision-making, things along those lines, and get him to where he is at now as a starting quarterback in the league. I mean, Lincoln Riley got 3 starting QBs in the league right now. So, yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be able to lock down pretty much all that talent in LA. And I think he's going to get that program rolling very, very quickly. So we'll shift gears here and just kind of talk about Notre Dame a little bit. Brian Kelly just kind of really did them. I mean, I don't know. I feel like he did kind of do them dirty, but I mean, it is a business. He signed for, I think right around like $95 million. I didn't really see like what any incentives he had were, but I'm sure they're nice. And it was just kind of crazy because, there's a screenshot going around Twitter right now that he basically had to message his kids in like a group chat, kids on the team, on Notre Dame's team, because the news got out that he was going to be moving on from Notre Dame and going to LSU before he was able to tell them. And I mean, he had the nerve to have him come in at like 7 a.m. and it was an 11-minute meeting. And then next thing you know, he was back into his car and on a plane heading to LSU. Another great coaching spot. I mean, I think that's arguably top 5, if not top 5, top 10 coaching spot. I think LSU has always had the talent. And they've always done a great job of just keeping a lot of them kids in Louisiana, keeping them home. Texas is right there. They're able to kind of snag some kids from there. Florida, I mean, they got kids that have come from Cali. They're definitely one of them schools where they don't really need to say and do a whole lot. I mean, they're just who they are. And kids definitely understand that, and they've seen the NFL talent, the Heisman winners that have come out of there. So they're definitely, name speaks for itself. I'm curious to see what he's going to be able to do, though. I mean, I don't like him as a person. Never met him or anything, but I've definitely heard some things about him that I don't like. But he knows how to coach. I mean, he was able to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is in South Bend, Indiana, basically in the middle of nowhere. Probably got some of the hardest, academic requirements in the country. And he was able to put together a great program, over 100 wins in like 10 years. Took him to the playoff the last like 2 out of 3 years. Really just had them run like a well-oiled machine for quite a while. So I don't have there's no doubt in my mind that, he'll have them up and running in the next couple of years. only thing with them is just like they just got to see Bama, they got to see Georgia, they got to see Florida. I mean, Texas A&M. I mean, you got to see, even like schools like Kentucky, Ole Miss, Tennessee. It's just not a cakewalk. And not to say Notre Dame plays a very relatively tough schedule, being an independent team. That's one thing I don't like Notre Dame. Never been a big fan of Notre Dame, but I do respect the fact that they're willing to go and play some tough teams. I mean, they play USC every year. They obviously been down the last few years, but I mean that's never a easy team to play against. They always end up having a ton of athletes, regardless how good or how bad they are. Playing Stanford, I mean, once again they're kind of down too now, but they've always been solid, just super consistent football team. They played Clemson. They played an ACC schedule a couple years ago, ended up making it all the way to the ACC championship. They'll always, they don't really welcome them cupcake games as a lot of these bigger schools do earlier on in the season. I mean, they're willing to, test the waters against even this year, like playing Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a top 10 team. They didn't get the job done, but I mean, just the fact that, they're welcoming those types of matchups, you just got to kind of respect that. So he's going to see, a lot of talented schools, and that recruiting is going to be very, very competitive. So I think as long as he's able to do his thing within the state of Louisiana, and just kind of cover, get into Texas and get into Florida, and just really, hone in and lock in on those guys. I mean, I feel like every school always ends up having those kids you got to just get, at the end of the day, year to year. There's some that kind of come and go, and, teams and schools and coaches know, like, okay, like we didn't really have a chance. We didn't really, we weren't really in the run to begin with, but, they got to definitely make sure that they do what they can to, on that recruiting side of things. That's what, I think the SEC, like, you're fighting against Bama. I mean, they're just committing, not even going on trips to Bama anymore, from what I've heard. I mean, they're really to that level to where now, they don't really need to. I mean, Nick Saban's going to their house and he's, got 5-6 championship rings on, and that's really all they need to see. I mean, he's getting at least 3 or 4 first-round draft picks in the NFL every year. So he doesn't really need to do a ton on his end, at least at this point in his career, I'm assuming. It'll be interesting. It'll be real interesting because, Brian Kelly, heard a couple of interviews he had, he, basically saying he wants to smoke. He wants to play on that biggest, on the biggest stage, at the biggest level. I mean, I think SEC, I think it's pretty fair to call them the best football conference in all of college football. So we'll see what he can cook up. So yeah, I mean, both of those are solid hires. I think if I had to choose between which one, who might end up being more successful, I would say, I think Lincoln Riley. I think he has a chance to be a little bit more successful, as I kind of stated earlier. I mean, the schools, there's not just that many good schools out in the Pac-12 right now. I mean, there are a lot of those guys. A lot of those schools are bottom feeders. I mean, can't tell you the last time I've seen like multiple Pac-12 schools ranked like within like the top 10, top 15, top 20. It just doesn't really happen anymore. But I think USC, man, I mean, I remember growing up as a kid and just, we watched Michigan. They came on at noon. Always kind of tuned into some games in that like 3:30 slot, or the 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock slot. But I mean, it was always kind of cool just as you winding down, going to bed, able to cut on USC. You see Reggie Bush, you see Mike Williams, Matt Leinart, Lindell White, all this talent that they had, in the backfield or on the outside, and just watching them, put 55, 60, up on Arizona State or, UCLA or whoever they're playing that week. But I think that both these coaches are definitely going to have things rolling pretty quickly. I mean, they've shown that they can run a well-oiled machine at the programs that they were at previously. And those aren't easy programs to be at either. So all in due time, I feel like it'd be good to see USC relevant again. And it'll be interesting to see LSU, having to,
go toe to toe with the Bamas and the Georgias of the world in the near future over the next few years here. So, but with that being said, man, that's all I have for you all today. Thank you for tuning in. And Eli and I both should be back next week, so you don't have to hear me rambling by myself too many more times going forward. Until next time, you guys have a good rest of your week.